All right, here we are live. Another week gone by. Ah, got the sniffles all of a sudden. Sit here just fine, waiting for the timer to count down to zero, and all of a sudden my nose starts running and my eyes get sticky, and no good reason for it. But anyway, here we are again. I was going to show you some of the stuff I showed you last week that I picked up at an auction, that Chromecast skillet, and a few other things that I got cleaned up and seasoned. And I got some more stuff, some kind of interesting things I picked up at a auction. A couple of pans. Mostly it was boxes of old junk and things that I had purposes for, but got a couple of pans along with the deal and a couple of neat things. So we'll show you them here in a little bit. Let me go through quick and say hi to everybody who's here so far. We got Cynthia, Jim44, Billy Lee, Fuzz Fork, and Dan. Good to see you guys. Corey Clark, Pat Z, RT Scott, Mark Cyber. He's here. Before you forget, check out Val's Black Cat's Rule. She put out some cast iron videos. Name's familiar for some reason. I've probably seen her around on YouTube at some point. I'll have to take a look at her if I ever get a chance to. I'm so far behind on watching so many videos that I'll probably never get caught up. But I'll try and get some of them in there. Rick Green. Anybody else here that I missed? Dan. There I said I had Dan. I think we got most of the people who are here already. Get all the way back to the beginning. Cast Iron Store. Nice to see you. And now I'll go back to the other end of the list. Fuzzy's been known to put out on the very first date. That's why Fuzzy's a popular feller. Let's see here. Dead air. Always exciting when I'm trying to scroll through these and pick up where I left off. I just got done dumping your E-tanks, getting ready to replace the anodes. And just too hot out there. 109 ain't playing around. Yeah, it's a bit warm. Gets up to 109. And people in the desert say, well, but it's a dry heat. No, 110, 109. It's just too damn hot for anything. Doesn't matter if it's dry or humid. You're going to be suffering. Mango. Mango's here. Nice to see you. I'm a small. I'll show you small here in just a minute. It's a cool little thing. Tessa Reed. Of course, just as soon as I start getting towards the caught up spot, everybody adds a bunch more comments. Okay, now I'm all caught up here. Becky G, good to see you. Anyway, big and small. We'll get to the big and small here in just a second. But I'm going to show you some of the things I got done. I got this here skillet lid. Got the rim on it. It's unmarked, but that's a very Volrath style of handle. It's really hollowed out on the end, and there's a rib that goes all the way from the hanging hole to the side of the pan. I kind of think it's Volrath, and when I showed you guys this before I got it cleaned up, everybody agreed, yeah, that looks like a Volrath. So I'm going to go with that and call it a Volrath until proven otherwise. Cleaned up real nice. I haven't used it yet, but it's been seasoned. Needs a little breaking in. Other than that, I'm tickled with how that turned out. Let's see. Here's that Chromecast. It's not a really, deeply marked logo on there. And I found once I got it cleaned up, right above where it says Chromecast, there's a little ES right next to the logo. Probably a maker's mark of some sort. Like I said last time around, originally people thought that these were made in Germany in the early 1900s because there was a company by the same name that made cast iron and farm implements and things like that in Germany. But a lot of people also think that these were maybe American made as well, 40s, 50s, 60s in there somewhere. So it's kind of hard to say one way or the other. Nobody's quite sure. Seems a little bit more modern than something you'd see for early 1900s cast iron. But then again, European had a little bit different design than American cast iron did. So, yeah, I kind of lean towards it being a 40s or 50s type of design, whether made in America or made in Europe. I couldn't really tell you. Get back here into the comments. Everybody saying hi to everybody else. Takes a while for everybody to say hi to everybody else and kind of zip through them and try to see if there's any questions in there. See the set chicken fryer with a lid. Memory serves, it was a Wagner. Yeah, they did. They made the combo cookers and they made, chicken fryers, of course. A little bit hard to say exactly what. Use yours as a griddle. I'm not sure. I must have missed what it was you were using for a griddle. Let's see. What else did I have here? Oh, yeah, that Javelin, that Canadian cast iron. These are made in Quebec. Fairly heavy pan, but that cleaned up really good. A little bit of pitting in there, but as rusty as it was, not nearly as much as I thought it would be. And I'm not sure what that black spots on there were. They just kind of showed up when I was seasoning it. But like I said, Javelin's made in Joliet, Quebec, made in Canada. Now, a lot of things said made in Canada. Normally, when you see made in USA, they were made after 1962, 63 in there because a law was passed in the early 60s that you had to mark things with the country of origin. But made in Canada has been on a lot of Canadian stuff since the 1800s. So just because it says made in Canada doesn't necessarily mean it was made after the early 60s. Your Javelin compares to your Martin and BSR, nice and hefty. Yeah, that's a chunk of iron there. It's a pretty heavy pan for its size. It's heavier than most number 8s even, actually. I'd say it's probably heavier than even a Lodge, that size. But that's a pretty cool pan. I guess they're not really common. They're not super rare, but you don't see a whole lot of them, even in Canada. You got a number 8 Wagner and a number, Wagner National number 8 given to you recently. Both cleaned up nice. Good. I've been doing a lot of cleaning and seasoning, hopefully getting a little bit caught up. We'll have to see. I gotta go through my piles again, see what needs to be run through the electrolysis and what needs to be seasoned yet. Ever heard of Ovenshire oval aluminum griddle? Has a deep side and a shallow side. Handle says poly. Nope. Can't say as I've ever heard of that. Cool to know about Canadian pans. Yeah, that's I mean they've been putting made in Canada on their stuff for a long time. So, if you do actually come across a Canadian one that says made in Canada, just know that it's not necessarily post 1960 like most made in USA stuff is. The Wagner National was number 9. Do I have any Mexican cast iron? No. That's kind of next on my list. Some of the Mexican cast that I've seen, some of it's pretty rough, kind of crude looking. Usually got a fairly good surface to it, but the inside or outside is pretty rough. I see some that's pretty nice. So, we'll see what happens as I go along. But anyway, big and small. I got 5 little items here. at an auction picked up over the weekend. This was in a box of stuff. Not quite sure what it is, but it is small. That's cast iron. It might be an ingot mold for like a jeweler or something. That looks like it hold about an ounce of, something like lead, gold, silver, something like that. So that might be a jeweler's ingot mold. It says G6 on the back. It's upside down, actually. G6 on the back. Get it cleaned up. We'll see how it turns out, but a little rusty. Just a cool little thing. I mean, that's, not even 2 inches long, a little more than an inch wide. Pretty slick little thing, whatever the hell it is. Like I said, that could be some kind of an ingot mold, for a jeweler, but that's the only guess I really got for it. It's not a scoop or anything like that either, so I'm not quite sure what it is. Did Lodge make a T-size card stick pan? Not that I'm aware of. I know they made 5, 7, and 9 spots. 9 slotted pans. I don't think they made a T-size. I could be wrong, but took a chance and bought one paddle of a number 18 Griswold Heart and Star waffle iron. It's numbered 928. What would be the number opposite it? Not sure. Usually they were sequential, like 928, 927, 29. Sometimes they were both the same number, but yeah, I don't know right offhand. But usually the Griswold with the waffle irons, they were either the same number or they were in series. So I would guess it'd be 929 or 927. But that's just a guess. Yeah, the CH Chicago Hardware skillet that the Griswold expert told me wasn't worth bidding on, cleaned up real nice. Yeah, well, at least it's one more guy you didn't have to bid against. Where's the kitty tonight? She's sitting behind my monitor staring out the window. She's been doing that for about the last 20 minutes. I don't know what she's been looking at, but it's definitely holding her interest, which is good because I don't have to deal with her. I need a 10 3/4 inch lid to fit your Lodge number 9. Any factory make that size? Yeah, it's tough to say. The difference between Dutch oven lids and, there's a size difference between Dutch ovens and skillets usually. And a lot of times the skillets will have the ears on them to cover the pour spouts, and the Dutch oven lids will be round. Really, all you can do is just, try one, keep trying it until you find one that fits. You have a Wagner 2-quart aluminum pitcher, has a lot of oxidation inside and out. Anything you can dip it in to clean it up? For degreasing them, Blue Cap, Easy Off oven cleaner, the blue, not the yellow, works real good for getting, build up and gunk. It does take some of the oxidation off, but not nearly all of it. I'd hit it with that first just to get it cleaned and then see what you can do with it. As far as dipping it, usually acidic things will clean up aluminum fairly good. It'll take the oxidation off. But, I mean, you could try soaking it in a vinegar bath for a while just to see what it does for it. Mennonite Farmhouse, nice to see you. Haven't seen you around in a while. Can you see the kitty? She comes out. Like I said, she's staring out the window, just intently watching something. Anyway, on to my next things. This is also in a box of junk, just a wee little skillet. Nothing terribly fancy, and it says Brillion on the back. Who or what Brillion was, I'm not exactly sure, but it's pretty nicely made little mini skillet. You know, it's a bit bigger than an ashtray spoon rest type of thing, but it ain't really big. It's maybe 3 inches across. You know, size of a number 0, number 1 skillet when you come across them. But that's just kind of a little, pretty sure it's just a little wall hanger sort of thing. Moving up in size, there were 2 skillets together. I paid $20 for the 2 of them. One of them, they're both really crusty and rusty, nasty looking. One of them looked like it was probably enameled at one time, and sure enough, it was. The outside enamel's fairly decent on it. It's a number 9 Volrath, but the inside is pretty rough. You can see she's chipping off and flaking and not really usable anymore. Once the enamel gets to the point where it's starting to chip and flake like that, it's going to keep on chipping and flaking and end up with bits of, basically ground glass in your food. You don't really want that. I have another one just like this, but this really wasn't what I was after because you can tell it was pretty far gone by the time I got to it. You know, it's a nice little pan to hang on the wall, and you get to see what a marked Volrath looks like. Didn't see any ghost marks on it. Volrath does that. Sometimes you'll see ghost marks on them. But the pan I was more interested in out of those 2 was this one. This is just out of the lye bath. I haven't done anything else with it. That's a nice number 9 fancy handled gate mark skillet. It's got a N on it. I have to go back in the lye, get the rest of that crud off there, let her clean up a little more. But basically $20 for this and chipped up Volrath for free seemed like a pretty good deal. It's going to end up with a bit of pitting to it once I get the rust off, but not as bad as I thought it was going to be at first. It actually cleaned up fairly good. It's going to be, pretty decent using pan. And it's always nice to find a gate mark skillet cheap like that. Sometimes they go fairly inexpensive, but a lot of times the gate mark stuff nowadays goes pretty high. So I was tickled to death to get that for $20. Can a skillet be re-enameled? Not that I know of. Real enamel like that, like with a bathtub or something, you can get them re-enameled, but it's actually an epoxy coating rather than a true enamel. Real enamel, you clean up the metal surface and you dip it in a mixture of ground glass, water, and usually it's got some clay, a few other binders in it. You mix that up, makes basically a paint. And after that, you put it in a kiln and you fire it, and the glass melts and bonds to the iron. So you can't really do anything with it. I have tried sandblasting old enamel off. It is possible. You have to have a really hard, sharp blasting media like a Black Diamond, Black Beauty blasting media. It's basically coal slag, but it takes a real long time. The one I've been working on I still haven't finished, and I've sandblasted on it. It's a Drew Holland oval roaster Dutch oven type thing. Maybe I think probably about 4-quart, 5-quart size. And I got maybe 2.5, 3 hours playing around with the sandblaster with that. And it doesn't come off easy. I have number 12, just like number 9. Restoration is completed, and it's a great large user. Yeah, I like most of the old gate mark skillets really cook nice. And like I said, it's nice to find one that's at a reasonable price. A lot of them, have really gone gone up in price lately, which is kind of surprising because they were usually, basically a giveaway. You'd buy a stove and they'd throw in a set of pans with it, just for kind of an advertising type of thing. Most of them are unmarked. There is actually, I should show you that one too. A few of the gate marked things were marked, but most of them aren't. And there's no idea who actually made them. Small skillet came from Brilliant Ironworks, Brilliant, Wisconsin. Okay, I've been to Brilliant now that I think of it. Asian made enamel cast iron has 2 layers of enamel. Make sure my keyboard's off so the cat doesn't step on it. She's finally decided to join us. Yeah, I suppose you want up here too, don't you? Yeah, silly cat. Come up and start attacking me. Looked up Brilliant, Wisconsin is most famous for their Christmas tree stands. Okay. Anyway, cast iron KS Asian made enamel has 2 layers of enamel. Le Creuset and Staub use 4. Yeah, Le Creuset usually holds up pretty good as far as the enamel goes. Drew Holland is not quite as durable, but the Desco that I have really seems to hold up well. Say that a couple of times fast. Anyway, now that the cat is out yet, may I stick a claw right in a burn I got on my finger? Down with you for a minute. The big thing that I got, and this is pretty cool, is this monstrosity. That's better than 1.5 feet across, almost 2 feet. It's a big aluminum kettle, pretty dirty. I haven't seen any marks on it. Looks like it was made to fit on a burner of some sort. You can see the burn marks on the bottom. But it's got that stub in the bottom to keep it centered. These ribs on the sides have a notch on it, so it's probably meant to sit down in some sort of a commercial stove type of thing. It has a mark on the side. Holds up to, I don't know if you can see it, holds up to 60 cups. I'm sure that's some sort of a commercial thing. Would have been cool to have a lid for it. But yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I paid $8 for it, so I wasn't going to let it pass. But I'll have to see how much easy off the blue cap stuff I got and get that cleaned up. A lot of buildup on the sides. You can see it's definitely used for whatever it was meant to be used for. But I thought that was just cooler than hell. This big monstrous aluminum pot. Fairly heavy aluminum. Pretty thick for its size. That's the big. And speaking of gate mark things, one of a nice flat bottom bulge kettle. One of the not sure how well it's going to show. There's actually several makers. Is Marietta, PA. Marietta, PA. Like that says 7 quarts. But there were a bunch of different markings. This is MH and E company. There's R and company. I think there's a couple of more different variations, but they all say Marietta, PA on them. And they're fairly, like I said, it's not really, I'm not sure if it was one foundry making a bunch of different things or if there were a bunch of different foundries. They seem to have pretty similar fonts to it, so it could be it's all made in the same place. Could be a couple of different foundries, but like I said, there's R and company. This one is MH and E company. But yeah, Marietta made gate mark stuff. It's one of the few ones that's pretty regularly marked. Marietta made a lot of those kettles. Yeah, I think most of the most of the skillets were R and Company, and most of the kettles were MH&E. It could, like I said, it could be wrong, but whether it was one foundry or two or three different foundries is unknown to me. If anybody knows a bit more about them, whether or not it was all one company or several of them making different brands. I found a Marietta enameled and had lead. A lot of the 19th century ones. Yeah, usually, past 1900 or so, they get away from the lead, but some of the really old stuff, you got to watch out for. You can test it and see if it has lead. Things like white, especially because they use white lead for the white enamel. You have one like that. It has Excelsior on the side. Yeah, Excelsior. They were in St. Louis. Excelsior and GF Feely were pretty much the same. The same foundry in St. Louis, as far as I know. Never ever tried cooking in 19th century enamel. Also, the enamel is very brittle and guaranteed to shatter. Yeah, a lot of times you'll see it's already starting to look like that. You can see where it's cracking and crazing. The outside isn't crazing too bad on that, but on the inside, a little tough to see in this light. You can see it's crackling up and where it's flaked off already. But yeah, that's what the Vollrath enameled one. I know Vollrath made some a fair bit of enamel kettles, pots, in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So you see them fairly often. They're kind of a bluish, real pale blue, white, or bluish white or whitish blue, however you want to put it. And usually when you see those, they're really crackled badly. I had to look it up. It's about a 2-hour drive from you. Didn't see any cast iron worth buying. Well, that's a shame. Let's see. Marietta Foundry is now a historical site. Only the original office building remains, and it's a museum. Sounds like a pretty cool museum. Your first cast iron bunt pan was enameled. Told us probably a Vollrath. Yeah, Vollrath, they're in business for quite a while, actually. Most of the cast iron skillets with the Vollrath logo and things like that, you see, those kind of got going in the 1920s, but prior to that, back into I think the mid 1890s, if I remember right, Vollrath was in business, and they were, like I said, they were making mostly enameled kettles, and they're still in business today. They quit making cast iron in probably the mid 60s, early 60s, but they still make commercial kitchenware, things like that, servingware, and yeah, they're still around. Yeah, they quit. Yeah, I was pretty sure it was the mid 60s. They did towards the very end. Yeah, it was that late. They kind of slowed down on some of it, but they kept up until the early to mid 60s. And they towards the end they also made some smooth bottomed ones. The vast majority of the Vollrath stuff you come across is going to have a heat ring, an outside heat ring on it. But towards the end, they did start making some smooth bottomed ones. Probably the late 50s. Last few years they were in the cast iron game, and I have one. I think it's number 5, but you do come across them once in a while. They make ware, cookware too. Cool. Yeah, like I said, they're still in business, and they make commercial kitchen equipment and servingware. They're a pretty good sized company yet. Where'd that cat go? She's making noise somewhere down below here, but I can't see her. I'm waiting for her to attack. But anyhow, yeah, well, that's what I got to show you. So that's kind of cool. Like I said, the Marietta is one of the few gate mark things you're going to find that has an actual name on it. There's a couple others here and there. Once in a while, you come across some that's marked, but probably 90% of any gate marked skillets or things like that aren't going to have a real clear maker name on them. They might have initials or C and L Cole, whoever the hell they were. And if they are marked, it's been lost to time who they were. Small companies that got bought out or went broke a century ago, and nobody knows who. The cat's behind me. Yeah, she's probably sneaking up. Be sitting here, and all of a sudden she'll come blasting through and knock a bunch of things off. Now you got me paranoid. The cat's behind you. She's in front of the sink. Is that where she's at? Well, she's moved since then. But she'll attack at some point. Oh, no, she's down here. There you are, you silly beast. Shipping. Yeah, shipping is nuts. I said it before. It's weird sometimes how they price the things. It costs more for me to get something out of Oregon than it does California, and it's actually a little bit longer, a little bit farther to Los Angeles than it would be to, say, Seattle. And it costs more for me to get something out of St. Paul than it would to get the same thing from Pennsylvania, New York. They kind of, I think they base it on major trunk routes, how far off the beaten path you are. But it's weird. I mean, it makes no real sense if you compare prices from shipping from different places. And that's the same company like FedEx or UPS. They're pretty much the same way. But they all have their particular hubs, and how far it is between them, I guess, is what they base a lot of it on. To get the cat spayed yet? Yes, I did. She's been spayed and shot and all of that. But coming from places and it's cheap, this thing's a beast. Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's hard to, I mean, you never know what you're going to pay until you actually figure out how much you're going to charge for it. Yeah, shipping anymore is like 18 one way. Yeah, 18 to 25, it's pretty much what it's going to cost you to ship just about anything. And a lot of things like the post office, they have flat rate boxes, but they never quite fit skillets right. So even though you can ship up to 70 pounds for the same price, it ain't gonna fit in the box. So you end up paying it by size and weight. It's usually not a whole lot more than it would be if it did fit the flat rate. But if you can, it's best to stuff as much as you can into the box and get your money's worth out of it. Rare and old don't mean valuable. True. It's mostly supply and demand. Yeah, there you are. I knew the attack was coming at some point. It's mostly supply and demand. I mean, something can be really rare, but if there's no demand for it, it's not going to be terribly expensive. And things that are relatively common, well, maybe not common, but just scarce, not terribly often seen. But if there's a lot of demand for it, the prices are going to go just nuts for them. Those old round bottom bulge pots, they didn't come with lids, so you just hung over the fire without a lid. Uh, a lot of them had a stamped tin lid for them. They didn't necessarily have a cast iron lid, and those pretty much always got lost over the years. Once in a while, you'll see the old uh, round bottom pots with a cast iron lid, but a lot of times it came with tin lids. So they're out there, but had to pay $300 in shipping for a tractor spindle. The guy said he cut the cost in half for me. Yeah, it's I mean, sometimes it would be cheaper just to go there and pick the damn thing up yourself, even if it's halfway across the country. Something like that. Yeah, you'd be better off just jumping in the truck and it'd cost you half that in gas just to go and get it. You have a lye tank, you have an E tank, but no lye bath. I'm going to do a lye bath. What's the ratio and what can a person do with the solution once you want to get rid of it? It's 5 pound. It's a 1 pound of lye. That usually comes in 1 pound containers. 1 pound of lye for every 5 gallons of water. And when you want to get rid of it, you can just dump it down the toilet, run it down a sink drain. I mean, it's going to be dirty and messy, but it'll clean up. And it's safe to dump it down your sewer. In fact, it'll clean out your clean the grease out of your pipes for you pretty good. Most drain cleaners, Drano, things like that are lye based. So yeah, it's lye isn't toxic in and of itself. It's caustic. I mean, if it's a strong enough solution, it'll burn, cause chemical burns, but it isn't poisonous in the sense that that it's toxic. Lye is used in a lot of different foods, different medications. Sodium hydroxide is in tons of things, so it's not it's not a hazardous. My cat is just about to knock over my light because she's playing with her scratching post thing. You hear a big crash and bang. That's what she did. But yeah, like I say, drain cleaner is usually lye based, so it isn't going to hurt anything. Just dump it down the drain. Rinse it good. Don't use anything acid for a while until it's flushed through thoroughly. Can't dump lye water down the sink or toilet if you're on septic. Yeah, sure you can. It's not going to hurt your septic tank. You're not going to have so much of it that's going to upset the ecosystem in your septic tank, unless you're running 400-gallon lye tank down there. Septic tank. That's why I asked. I have a septic tank, and I've never had any problem with dumping a lye bath down there. Like I said, unless you're running 400 or 500 gallons at a time down your toilet, it's not going to be a problem. If you really want to, if you're really worried about it, you can neutralize it with vinegar, but it can be a bit foamy and bubbly and splashy, so it's kind of dangerous. But yeah, it's not going to cause a problem. You'd be so scared of dumping that oil in the sink. Well, you're not going to have any oil to speak of because the lye dissolves the oil. I mean, lye and oil is basically turning it into soap almost. Not quite, because you have to heat it in order to make soap, but that's a whole another thing. 25-gallon tote, yeah, it shouldn't cause any problems. Had a friend dumped a used 15-gallon lye tank directly into his bathtub to get rid of it. Took him a week to clean his tub. Yeah, I mean, you could end up with a lot of mess. It leaves a mess in the toilet, but that cleans up pretty easy because it's hard porcelain. But yeah, a tub. I mean, it could be a fiberglass tub, especially if it's fiberglass. You'd probably stain the hell out of it. But down a toilet or down a stainless steel sink, something like that isn't going to hurt anything. It should clean up pretty good. Your granddaughter got you a little SpongeBob Lodge skillet the other day for $1. Need to make her some pancakes in it. That sounds cool. I can usually find a lid to fit the number 8 bulge pots, but having number 9 and none of your lids fit well. You have a glass lid that sort of fits, but doesn't look period, of course. Yeah, it's tough to find one. I have I think it's a number 8. It's a Wagner flat bottom pot, and it's actually an enameled Descoware lid. It fits just perfectly on it. Looks kind of silly because you got a black iron pot with a yellow enameled lid on it, but it fits perfectly. So maybe try some of the other. Look for Descoware lids. Drew Holland lids, things like that. Something because they're a little bit different size than most of the American ones. They're made to a metric measurement, so you might actually be able to find something that fits, even if it doesn't look quite right. So if you heat up a funky used lye tank, you can make soap. It sounds like a nasty soap. Yeah, it'd be a pretty ugly soap, but yeah, making soap, you basically just add lye to melted fat. I mean, if you got the temperature and the concentrations right, I mean, it's definitely an art to it. But its most basic level soap is just lye and fat. That the lye reacts with the fat and turns into soap. Like I said, the temperatures have to be just right to get a true soap, but you'll get kind of a soapy sort of thing sometimes, just randomly mixing them. Recently picked up a Griswold Able Skeever pan. Never seen them in the wild, so you nabbed it for $60. That's about right. There's a bunch of them on Goodwill right now. There's been kind of a rush of Griswold Able Skeever pans, and they're selling either side of $50. Around 50, $60 in there. So that's pretty much the right price. Check Goodwill for used stainless steel stock pot lids. Yeah, that'd work too. I mean, you can usually find glass and stainless lids pretty cheap at secondhand stores. You're able to grab that gem pan for $65, a Waterman. Yeah, they're it depends on exactly which style it is, but anywhere from 50 to 7,500 even sometimes for a lot of the Watermans. They're kind of credited with being the folks who got the cast iron gem pan craze going back in the late 1800s. They had a bunch of different designs, and pretty soon everybody was making them. There were gem pans before that, but they're usually stamped tin. And then there was another company after Waterman, R&I from Boston. They kind of took over. And they used the same patterns, and there are, of course, a lot of different copies of them made. But yeah, they were one of the the early ones who got big into the gem pan production, like I say, they kind of built the market for it, and pretty soon everybody and their brother was making them. Uh, this one is a number 2 round. I find this interesting. Yeah, they had, like I said, there were millions of different shapes and sizes of the gem pans. I mean, it's a whole rabbit hole if you really want to get into it. A lot, there's people that just collect different sort of gem pans because there's so many, different brands, different styles, and the Griswold ones, of course. The Griswold made a bunch of them. Those go for a fair bit of money, especially some of the early Erie ones. Those tend to go for $100 on up, depending on exactly what ones they are. But you can find a lot of them pretty reasonably priced, especially a lot of the unmarked ones. Lodge, BSR, they made a lot of gem pans, and they usually weren't marked, or they would just have silly cat. They would just have a number on them, a number 6, number 8, something like that. And a lot of those are unmarked, so you can get those pretty reasonable. Mercy B's going away. Well, we'll see you next time, Mercy. Drop in. Should be doing this again next week, as far as I know. Let's see here. Yeah, speaking of which, I saw it was a Griswold, kind of a golf ball pan, or actually it was an Erie, and I think it was Erie or Griswold. Anyway, they had the little half round uh, cups to it, and that sold at an auction for, I think it was 175. That went for pretty good bit of money. So, like I said, I mean they can be expensive, but they're usually fairly cheap. I have an older Le Creuset Dutch oven. The inside enamel is crazed. Any problem with that? Not chipping. Usually, if it's just getting crazed, it's getting borderline. If you see it where it starts to flake, you definitely want to quit using it. A lot of times, some crazing, it'll last for quite a bit longer after that. It's kind of a judgment call. It's best not to use something that isn't. I mean, if you have a few chips and it's otherwise good and sound, that usually doesn't hurt anything. But it's when it starts getting crazed and crackling is when you're most likely to start running into trouble. So I'd be careful with it. Keep a close eye. If you start noticing that it's starting to chip or flake, I would quit using it. There's a high base Griswold waffle iron. It was at 145. Use your cast iron, but be afraid of something happening to it. 145 isn't chump money. Yeah, I bet it'll probably still go a bit higher than that if it hasn't sold already. Usually the high base Griswolds, you start to get closer to 200, 175, 200 for something like that is kind of the going rate. Where a low base, they're usually 140, 150 is what they usually sell for. You have a Griswold number 4 Wagwald. How much they sell for? Not really sure. I mean, I've seen a couple of large logo Griswold number 4s sell for a good bit less than they have been. I mean, I think one sold for like $75, and usually I see them. Usually they're more closer to twice that, 140, 150. But Wagner number fours, they usually go 80, 90, $100 in there somewhere. So a Wagwald, yeah, hard to say. 75 to 100 in there wouldn't surprise me, but maybe less even. I mean, it might only go for 50 because there's not a huge demand for the Wagwald stuff. I hope y'all have a good night. Just jumped in to ask a couple of questions you want to know. Well, hopefully we answered them. Well, I know we answered them, but hopefully we answered them correctly. That's usually a little better. 50 is better than the 5 I paid for it. Yeah, like I said, I mean it's kind of hard to tell with some of the Griswold stuff, and if you have a number 4 uh, Lodge or BSR, they're really scarce. They can go for quite a bit of money. It's hard to it's tough to say sometimes. Prices kind of bounce around, and you see things sell for half of what they should, and then the next day the same thing will sell for twice what it should. But I would guess around $50 for it. Probably wouldn't be too far out of line. One of the groups has a number 4 BSR. It's not a nest. Bidding started at $1,000. That seems a bit high. I mean, I've seen them sell for 400 to 500 for number 4s, but yeah, 1,000 seems a bit steep for that. I think next week I've been kind of saving up stuff on the Goodwill site. Some of the more expensive things that have sold lately. It's got that $3,000 hammered Griswold on there. A bunch of other things that have sold for fairly high prices. I think I'll show that to you next week. You're gonna sit there, you're gonna attack again. But yeah, I think we'll take a look at some of the more expensive things that have sold lately. But yeah, 1,000 sounds pretty steep for something like that. But half of that's still a hell of a lot of money, and I have seen them sell for around that area. So one of the BSR 4s went for nearly 2,000. Jesus, that's just nuts. Didn't know that. You're not the winning bidder. Love your BSRs, but you do have some restraint. Yeah, 2,000 is a bit much for most anything. Cat's got the zoomies now. Fuzzy's a poor collector, must stay under 100. Yeah, I mean the vast majority of the stuff I have, is well under 100. A lot of it's even cheaper than that. 20, 30, $40. There's a few things I paid a couple hundred for. I paid was it 365 for that square Wagner chicken fryer, but yeah, for the most part, most of my stuff's been found pretty decently cheap. Has a cat mellowed some since spaying? No, not really. She's like I said, she just went tear assing through here, a million miles an hour. I'm sure she's tearing up something in the living room right now. There's only 52 known to exist of the BSR number 4s. Huh. Didn't know that. I knew they were pretty scarce, but yeah, only 52 of them. I can see where it'd go for quite a bit of money then. Especially when you have 52 of something and 1,000 people want it. Yeah, they're going to run the price up. but I can't really think of much of anything that I would spend anywhere near that. I mean, like I said, 365 I think is the most I've ever paid for anything. I paid I think it's a little under 300 for that great big favorite roaster I have, and those are pretty scarce, especially with a lid like that. It's hard to find them. So yeah, I mean, it's seldom I'll pay more than 100. I can't see me paying more than 1,000 for pretty much anything, even if it's actually worth that much. Maybe if I found a broiler waffle iron, I think I showed you pictures of it. It's a majestic. It's a big oval frame, and you can put either an open broiler on it, or you can put a big oval shaped waffle iron on it. Something like that. If I had the money, I might actually pay that much for it, but I never have that much money to spend on things like that. You have a 5 with a 4 ghost mark, as close as you'll get. Who says there are only 52? That was Hog Wild Cast Iron Restoration. Your BSR set will never have a 4 unless you get really lucky and find a number 5-3. Yeah, there's always, seems there's always that one rare piece if you're trying to make a series of anything, whether it's coins or cast iron. There's always that one that's impossible to find. Is that sauerkraut ready? Oh yeah, that's actually what I got going in there right now is crock pickles, and they should be done by now. I got to can them up this weekend when I'm off. No, off the top of the head, the size Wagner used, kind of reading around the thing here, used for the corn dogs. The one you hate it, the one you hate us about. It's corn dog season. I used for the video. I used just 2 of the junior sized Wagner corn stick pans. If you have 2 of the senior size, they do work better, but you can use the junior with them. So either size. T size is a little bit too small, but yeah, just your standard junior size corn stick pans will work. But if you have the bigger ones, they do work a little easier. 52 known. They have a list of everyone found. They did make more, just 52 known. That Grateful 10 pan at auction, supposedly only under 10 made. Well, that's going to be really scarce then if there's only 10 made. You have one 7L BSR, where you want another one so you make big corn dogs. Yeah, the bigger pans do work easier than the than your normal size, the junior, which is the same size as pretty much most of the corn stick pans you're going to find. They you had a big one, then you found an aluminum. Yeah, like I say, the bigger ones, they do work a little easier. You can get a little bit more batter around the outside. The small ones, you can. I think I did use 2 seniors on. I don't remember if I made those live or regular video. But the first time I did them, I used 2 regular junior size. But anyway, with seniors, you get a little bit more batter around the outside, and they work a little easier. The juniors got to be a little more careful to get the hot dog centered up so it it doesn't have all the batter on one side and nothing on the other. Just get supper made for the farmer to get home. Alrighty, well, get your supper made then. Anyway, yeah, it's about time for me to go too. It's been an hour already. Gotta go, gang. Thanks for the show tonight. Like I said, we'll probably do this again. Do this again next week. I don't see any reason why not. And yeah, like I say, I think we'll look at some of the more expensive stuff that's sold on Goodwill lately. That ought to be fun. And I'll see you guys next week. See ya.